Conas, how are you? Welcome back to the Candlelit Tales podcast, where we tell Irish mythology set to original music. And in this episode, part 2 of the fall of the Fianna, we're looking at the death of Goll Mac Morna. And this one's told by my sister Saga. This is following on from the longest saga that we've ever told in this podcast. And if you'd like to hear more about our chats, our conversations, our analysis of these stories, which we used to do way back when, and we only release now for the Candlelit crew, you can follow the links below and join the Candlelit crew by helping us support this channel and support this podcast. If you'd like to hear more about our storytelling courses, they're starting very soon. Applications are open for Turning the Wheel Together, our year-long immersion into mythology, Irish customs and mythology and storytelling. We also have a crash course called Answer the Noble Call, and more dates will be released very soon on our website. Go to candlelittales.ie for more details. But for now, here's Saga. Tell us a story, will you?
To build a thing takes a long time, great effort, sacrifice and hardship. To build a thing that lasts, that is worthwhile, that stays the course. To destroy a thing takes less time, much less effort. After the quarrel in the feasting hall, things were different in the Fianna. The tension simmered. Everyone knew which side they were on. Clan Bashkna with Fionn or Clan Morna with the Goll and Conas and the rest of them. They would have brought it to the High King, as Fergus Fionn suggested, but the High King Cormac MacArt was not the High King any longer. He had stepped down. He had retired, and he had passed the torch to his son Carborough. And Carborough Lifacar made no secret of his hatred of the Fianna, who had persecuted his younger sister for so many years. Neither Fionn nor Goll trusted that Carborough would help them, and so they did not bring their quarrel to him. They did not bring it anywhere else. They let it fester. Oisin did not speak to Fionn after the feast. Oisin went away with a woman of the other world on a white horse, promising to return in 3 years. Taking refuge in the other world, much as Quilty MacRonan did. And the quarrel broke out again, as the Fianna were in Connacht, dividing the pigs of Manannán Mac Lir amongst themselves. And this time there were no poets to break up the fight, no level heads. The quarrel turned physical. Blades were drawn. 15 men of Clan Morna lay dead on the forest floor by the time it was done. Clan Morna, well, they wanted revenge. They thought to be a little subtle about it. So some of the younger men went to Beric Breck, Fionn's lover, the golden-haired queen. She had been fostered by Clan Morna as a child. She should be on their side, they told her. Beric Breck asked them what exactly they were asking her to do. They told her she should put aside Fionn. She should leave Fionn McCool to show loyalty to her clan. And when she said no, one of those young warriors took his spear out, cast it through her body and killed her. Fionn went hunting to take his mind off things. He saw a deer. A familiar deer? It looked like a familiar deer. It looked like one he'd seen long ago, and Skjolon darted through his legs, lunging and growling at the deer, and Fionn caught her between his knees and squeezed. Was that Sive? But the deer bolted away. And when he looked down at the hound caught between his legs. He had misjudged his strength. He had squeezed too hard. His hound Skjolon was dead. Her white body, the red stripe down her back, looking like blood now. Goll Mac Morna took a hound called Conbeg that Fionn had favoured and drowned it in the water, in the ocean, for no other reason than to hurt Fionn McCool. Hurt him it did when the hound's body washed up. And so Fionn and Clan Bashna, well, they allied with 3 sons of the King of Ulster, and they broke into 2 war parties, and they started to track Clan Morna through the wilds of Connacht. Separated, and at night, one party of young men followed the tracks of a great company, came upon them where they camped, fell on them in the darkness and slaughtered them before they could put their hands to their weapons. And at dawn the next day they saw they had hunted their allies. They had killed the king's sons of Ulster. They had killed warriors of Clan Bashna by mistake. Cuilche Mac Ronan raised a stone cairn over that place. The stone of the mistake, a silent rebuke for this hostility. Carol of the White Skin, Fionn's son. He challenged Goll Mac Morna to a fight, a duel between the 2 of them, 1 man against 1 man, to settle this. Carol was younger, stronger, more agile, confident. And Goll Mac Morna, one-eyed, old. Tough as leather, but how could he stand against someone less than half his age, in the prime of his life? They battled on the strand. It was not a battle that poets sing of. It was brutal. Carol of the White Skin was a young man with a high opinion of himself. Goll Mac Morna had been the greatest fighter of the Fianna before he was ever born. And he had not slowed with age. And he had not weakened. And he slaughtered Carol with ease. And then he looked at the body of the son of Fionn McCool, a young man that he had known, a young man that he had trained, that he had hunted beside, fought beside. Something broke in Goll Mac Morna. He could not bear the thought of facing Fionn. He could not bear it. He could not conceive it. How could he ever speak to Fionn McCool again? So he told himself he was going to wait a few days. He was going to give Fionn the opportunity to cool down, to calm down. He took himself to a remote sea cave at the end of a peninsula, near a sea stack out in the west. And there, with the gulls wheeling overhead and the dry seaweed stinking and the smell of salt burning his nostrils, he stayed. No one could sneak up on him. He could hear the only way to approach this place was along the stony strand, and he would hear the crunch of footsteps. He would hear Fionn coming before he even saw him. He would be able to react. And when he heard that crunch of feet on stone and looked out, it was not Fionn who came to confront him, but Fionn's grandson, Oscar. No, Goll had not feared a confrontation with Carol of the White Skin. But Oscar Oscar had the makings of a champion. If there was one man in the Fianna that Goll was wary of facing in combat, it was Oscar. Oscar had a ferocity that none could match. So Goll knew that he couldn't let Oscar get close. Oscar called out to Goll and said, "You need to make peace with Fionn. You need to come and talk to Fionn. Goll, this has gone too far. This has gone beyond. The two of you need to sit down and talk about this. It's come up before, you've put it aside. There have been insults, there have been fights. All my life, this has been coming up and going away again. You need to deal with it once and for all." And with every word he spoke, Oscar got closer. And Goll's ears fixed not on the words, but on the crunch of his feet on the stones of the beach. And he waited until Oscar was close enough, and then flung his spear. It would have killed anyone else, but Oscar was Oscar, and he caught it on his shield. It left a mark. Oscar said some more words, pleading or hectoring or something. Goll couldn't hear him. The waves were loud. The cries of the seabirds were loud. And eventually Oscar stopped talking and walked back down the beach away, feet crunching in the stones. And Goll saw them. People sent to watch the passes. In his mind's eye, he knew they were there. Fionn would never let him leave. Fionn McCool had him trapped here and cornered, just as he had cornered Cool all those years ago in a fort, just as he had cornered him and killed him. Goll was determined not to let Fionn McCool kill him. He would have his own death on his own terms. He heard the crunch of footfalls in the sand. He looked up expecting Fionn McCool, come to make an end of him at last. But it wasn't Fionn, it was his own wife. She clambered out onto a rock and called out to him, begging him to come back, pleading with him, lamenting the fact that he was here with no food and no water, no comfort, no friendship, nothing and no one to stand with him. Goll told her to go. When he'd married her, he'd fought for her. He'd fought the son of the King of Spain, who loved her beyond reason, and he hadn't killed the man, out of respect for his good taste. So he told his wife to go to him.
Get yourself gone. Go on back to the King of Spain, if you remember him. I'm sure he'll still have you. Fought hard enough for you. I'll not come out of here till Fionn McCool comes and faces me on his own. If he's brave enough. Sure, I've not taken advice all my long life. I'll not start now. Go on.
His voice was weak and thready, barely heard above the seabirds and the waves. Could he hear a crunching of salted rocks as someone walked closer? He didn't let himself sleep, watching for Fionn McCool to come. Perhaps a part of him wondered if Fionn McCool coming would be a fight or would be a talk. He dreaded the talking more than the fighting. Fighting he had always been good at. Fighting was clean. Blood and pain. And then it was all over. Talking was hard. Talking took it out of him. What was there to talk about anyway? He had killed Fionn McCool's father, and he had killed Fionn McCool's son. And he had killed Fionn McCool's dog, which was a petty thing. He shouldn't have done that. But he had a right to kill Fionn McCool's father. Fionn McCool's father had persecuted him, chased him out of Ireland, driven him around the world. He had a right to take that tribute from Leighlin. He had every right to kill Carol of the White Skin, because Carol had challenged him. Goll Mac Morna waited in the sea cave for Fionn McCool to come.
He'll come. He'll have to come.
Fionn McCool waited on the land for Goll Mac Morna to leave, to be seized by the warriors he had watching all the passes and all the paths. They both waited. 12 days Goll Mac Morna spent in that cave, with nothing to eat but seaweed, and nothing to drink but the salt water of the ocean. Goll Mac Morna died alone. Not in battle. Not in a fight for one who'd survived so many fights for so many years. He died cold and alone by the side of the sea. And with that, with Goll Mac Morna's death, all hope of reconciliation was gone with him. Because Conan Mac Morna was now the leader of Clan Morna. And if Goll had been unreasonable, Conan was worse. He had always been blunt and brutal, but a good man to have on your side. And now he was no longer on Fionn McCool's side, and all of Clan Morna was against all of Clan Bashkna, and there was nothing that Fionn McCool could do to make peace between them. There was no High King to go to for mediation. There was only one hound at his side. His son Oisin was gone. His son Carol was dead. And he had not seen Sive. It had been just a deer. Only Oscar was left, telling Fionn that nothing could stop them, reminding Fionn that he was Fionn McCool of the Fianna, and that still meant something. But all Fionn could see was how quickly it had come apart. All those years building, bringing in the tests and trials, and now all of it crumbling away, like a shoreline eroded by waves, but faster and faster. And each incoming wave took away more and more of what was left. Clan Morna in the wilds hunting Clan Bashkna. And even the people of Ireland seemed to turn away from him. Fewer friendly faces, fewer welcomes wherever he went. It was slipping away. And Fionn McCool could not stop it.